Welcome to a very special behind the scenes episode of the 25th Hour podcast. Today, Laura Licursi and I talk about our Delegate Like a Pro beta program. What was it like working together? What did we learn about ourselves during the process? And what did our students learn and accomplish during our 8-week Delegate Like a Pro course? And then we end with some thoughts around what our next joint venture will be, which again is a Delegate Like a Pro, but this time it'll be in 28 days instead of over the course of 2 months. If you like behind the scenes access and you like listening to two people share the good, the bad, and the ugly on what it was like to work together and create a beta course, then this is the episode to listen to. All right, Laura, here we go. Let's talk about what was it like creating our Delegate Like a Pro beta program. So many things, and I think it would be cool to let people in, take that peek behind the scenes here. So I think our first question is, where did this idea even come from? Like, why did we decide to do this?
Well, it's funny because we started with the Facebook Lives last year. And like you, like you said, we're going to do these every single week until COVID ends. And since there was no end in sight, it kind of led us down this path into helping people delegate because both of you and I see that struggle in both of our businesses, and it's just a need. It's such a huge need out there. So yeah, it definitely was a spin-off from our pandemic.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that's so cool about what we're learning through this process is it's not the first version or the second version or the third version. It's that all of those pieces just kind of spun off themselves and came together and built to where we ended up with this beta program that we just finished running. But I remember our first Facebook Live that we did, and we prepped for like 2 hours to do like a 20-minute live. And I remember thinking, man, this is a lot of work. And then we kept doing them. And then it became easier and easier and easier is my point. But I remember our first one, I was like, man, we prepped a lot for that 20 minutes. I just get on Facebook and talk. Like I never prep. And I think our end product was way better because we prepped than
Yeah.
if I would have just gone on randomly and talked.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It definitely has been a process.
It has been a process. So share a little bit about our program. Like, what was Delegate Like a Pro about? Like, what did we teach in it?
So, basically it's the who, what, and how to delegate, right? So, because those are the three huge pieces, you need to know who you're delegating to, you need to know what you're delegating, and then the biggest part was obviously the how. But I think what really made the difference for our students was the implementation piece. Because you can read about delegating all day long, but if your hand isn't forced really for that accountability piece of, okay, I'm in this class, I need to implement what I'm learning, because then I'm accountable to go back and say how it went. And I think us doing that recap piece too every week with, okay, you did this, what worked, what didn't work, what can we tweak? Because so many times, as you and I see, people start to delegate, they feel it's not working because obviously they're missing one of the pieces, and then they just give it up, where we're showing them, no, it will work, you're just missing A, B, and C. So yeah, it was great. It just was so fun to see, to meet all these people, all different business owners from, all different industries, and everybody has the same struggles, which is just, it's just funny because you don't really think of it like that. So
Right. And one of the pieces I loved about this beta class is they were so open to giving us feedback.
yeah,
We need more of this. Or, Could you give us an example of this? And they were so big on examples, which I know that's how I learned too. But
Yes.
I hadn't thought about it as we were laying out our content.
Right.
And that was like the number one, I think, request that we got was, can you teach us the concept, but give us a real world example of how it works for you?
Yeah.
And then over and over again. I think that was the biggest piece was the fact that they were so open with giving their feedback for me. And then another piece that I found really insightful was just the idea that it isn't going to work the first time.
Right.
Just like our Facebook lives, they were great, but they weren't really going anywhere. We're gonna do this until the world changes back. And they were like,
Yeah.
we're in a month, we're in 6 weeks. Okay, this is not happening anytime soon. We need a new plan. And with this one, we gave them the plan, yet when they implemented it, they weren't able to implement it 100% perfectly the first time because who is?
Right.
And every one of those opportunities were opportunities for learning because
Yes.
they could come back and share. And I think that was the other big takeaway I had from listening to our participants is, and they would come back with ownership. It didn't work. And it's not because of the person I delegated to, it was the person it was me. I
Right.
missed something. I missed a piece. I
Exactly.
need to do something differently. What is it?
Yes. And a lot of times, though, if you don't know the pieces, like even for example, the 6 levels of delegation that we teach, that's huge. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're delegating, that there are different levels of delegation that, you can't start at the end. You have to start at the beginning. And, a lot of people don't know that. So it was, yeah, I think it was really eye-opening for a lot of people. And okay, like it was great for them to see that it's okay to struggle with this because everybody does.
Right.
And the other thing I thought was interesting was everybody kind of seemed to struggle with a different piece. Some people really struggled with the who, and some people struggled with the what, and some with the how. So, I mean, the how is the biggest piece, but there was definitely a variance in our members. So,
Yeah, I thought that was interesting also now that you bring that up because I just assumed, oh, the what and the who will be super easy
mhm,
and it'll be the how.
yeah,
And yet that was not the case. And I assumed when we looked at our how piece that it was going to be process. Like I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to have all these questions about process. And yet that wasn't necessarily the questions that came up. It was a lot more of those, how do I get this across without being mean? Like, how
yeah,
do I say, like, I'm thinking of our last question, like, how do I say, did you even think? Without
yeah,
it coming out like, did you even think? But also, like, how do I explain something without condescending?
mhm,
Like, I don't want to speak to someone as if they're a 5-year-old, but I want to make sure that I'm understood. Like, it was those more of those soft skill pieces
right.
that came up in this class that he didn't even think would be something that we would talk about.
Right, right. And definitely getting those questions answered as they were moving through the process, I think was just a huge piece for them, like, those eye-opening moments.
Yeah, I'm really glad when we were laying out our thoughts for the beta that we thought through how can we deliver the content and still give them time to implement and come back to tweak
Right,
instead of just laying out a day of content or, you know, 3 days of content and being done or something like that.
right. Yes, it's definitely that interactive piece, though, I feel with anything is what really helps you grasp a concept and be able to take it all the way to the end.
Yeah. I heard something in a podcast recently about short-term motivation versus long-term transformation. And I think there's that tendency when you take a new course or you get new learning that you're motivated right in that moment to go out and do, but that doesn't always stick.
Right.
And so our goal was with this course is that we were able to teach the skill and they would be motivated to do it, but get it so ingrained that it would create that long-term transformation in a business.
Right, right. And just the process though too, I feel in how we taught the class made it very easy to take what they learned and just throw it on rinse and repeat then because once they had all those pieces, because it really was for each task, right? Because we broke it, we got so granular with that it's they can just take this now and over and over again, follow the steps. So
So I'm curious, what did you learn? And I'm thinking of it in two ways. So you can pick whichever way you want to answer first, and then we'll do the other way. But the
okay.
first way I'm thinking is like, what did you learn from creating the course in general? And then the second thing I'm thinking of is what did you learn as a business owner as you're going through the exercises and the steps along with our class?
So the first part, what did I learn for myself? It is so funny because it totally, because you and I worked through like the time tracking and all of that together with the class. And the one piece of my business that I was on your podcast before and said, there is one piece of my business I have been holding on to that I should not be. And when I really sat down and did those exercises, I was like, holy cow, this takes up so much of my week. Because, it's one thing to look at things in days, but when you take the big picture out and you look over a week, I was like, this is crazy. So I started working through the process now that I am next month taking that entire piece off my plate. It like I know it was like amazing, right? And I don't know if I would have really got I don't know if I really would have dug in, even though I delegate all the time. I mean, I have roles delegated in my business, but I'll tell you what, this was such an eye opener for me. Like, yes, this is the piece I need to get rid of. And then I can just, I know that that's going to be out of my brain and it's going to be off my calendar. So,
Well, and as you say that, I'm thinking, okay, what was my piece of learning as I went through the steps too? And it was also in the time tracking portion because I realized then, and it only took me tracking 3 days to see, okay, this is happening. I had relaxed my boundaries and I had relaxed my boundaries on sending people to my online calendar. I had relaxed my boundaries on when I would, what type of appointments I was taking. And it wasn't that the people that I was seeing weren't important or anything like that. It was just that I had let all these 15 and 20-minute things slide in to the places I had opened up for white space and for thinking time and things like that. Because in my head, it was like, kind of like you said, when you look at it in the course of a day, it doesn't mean that much until you expand it out to the week. And for me, it was like, oh, it's only 20 minutes.
right.
Until all of a sudden that 2, 3, 4 hour block I had set aside got chipped away all over the place. And so from a time tracking standpoint, that was the first, like, I was like, oh, wow, I need to hold those firmer. I need to send people to the scheduler, make sure that I do the things that I've followed the structures I've set in place for myself
Mm-hmm.
because they're there for a reason. Like only chaos reigns when I override my own process. Like it's
Yes.
never good.
We are our own worst enemy.
Right? I've like left to my own devices. I will mess this up every time. Please use the process.
Yeah.
But so that was my first piece. And then on the delegating end, I realized that I was getting stuck in if I can't delegate the whole task, I won't delegate any of it.
Right.
Where in effect, there were pieces I needed to keep, but I could delegate out 90% of it and just keep the 10 until I could come up with a way to figure out how to delegate, how to transfer what's in my head into someone else's easily that I could delegate that last 10%.
Yes.
But there was a lot of those. And because I kept looking for like that big, it's like, oh, there has to be a big thing like you found. You found like this big thing. And I was like, oh, I've got to have a big thing. What I didn't realize is I had a lot of little things that once dealt with added up to a big thing.
Yeah, well, and that's actually though. So mine is my bookkeeping. That's the one that I've been holding on to, and it's the same thing though. I'm not going to delegate 100% of that, but it is going to be about 90%. And this class helped me break down the pieces that I can actually comfortably and easily So I've just been creating processes for every time I'm doing something, I've been doing it. And it was just the kick in the pants I needed to do it. I mean, I know how to do it, right? Like I know how to do it. Why was I not doing it? I needed that push in this class. And even though we were teaching it, helped me get over that hump.
Well, and I was thinking about our class this morning. I got an email from one of my VAs asking a question, and I sent it back. Like at first I thought, am I the only one with this knowledge? And I was like, yeah, I am. Because it was a preference. Like, how do you want me to do blah, blah, blah to my preference? And so I was like, okay, I really am the only one with this knowledge. So I emailed back and I said, here's what I need. Here's why, which I was 50-50 on the here's why part up until us going through our own course.
Me too. That's
Right?
a huge piece.
It's like, oh, look at us go through our own course. Oh yeah, why is a really big important part.
Yeah.
And then the last line I put on there was, and will you please create a process, document it, and put it in our training library?
Yeah.
And I was like, because now no longer need to answer that question. And the next person who comes in, and it was silly. And I realize people listening right now are like, oh, what was it? So it was about days off. So they will email, I mean, my VAs, they work their own calendar, they work their own schedule. And so they'll email me and as a heads up and say, hey, I'll be out of town, or I'll be unavailable, or I'll have limited hours or whatever. And I'll read it and I'll be like, okay, remember that. And then I'll delete the email and then I won't remember it.
Yeah.
Ever. And then I'll be like, I wonder why they're not responding. And then it'll click. Oh, wait a minute. I think they sent me an email 3 weeks ago that they were going to be out sometime. And then I'm searching and searching and searching. And so I was like, all right, this is goofy. Let's not do this anymore. And so I said, all right, I need you guys to just pop it on my calendar. Just pop it on there so I can see it.
Yeah.
Don't make it a busy time on the calendar. Just get it on there so it's obvious and I can see it. And so the question came today is like, okay, and which calendar? The marketing calendar, your business calendar, do you want to come? And I was like, ooh, those are all good questions.
Yeah.
That I need to make sure I let them know. And it seems like such a little thing, but I cannot even begin to tell you over the last month how much time I have spent digging through email, looking for days that I knew they were not available.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what we finally incorporated with that too is they will create the invite on there, or they'll create an invite for me. So it doesn't show up as being busy, but it'll say like Suzanne's vacation. And as long as I accept it, it automatically populates on my calendar. So I've got that reminder, which is nice.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. So I had nothing and was trying to do it by memory, which again, another thing that was reiterated through our class is let's not do things by memory.
Right. Right.
So if we take this away from the delegating piece, what do you think you learned just about the process of creating this class in general, creating this class together? Like, give us a behind the scenes look. Like, what were some of your takeaways from that part?
Well, I mean, you and I feel we play good together. We play well together. I think we both play off of each other's strengths, which was really nice. And honestly, it's just such a needed, I can't even stress this enough, like just how much it was needed. And to sit there and create all of the content and create all of the pieces, I don't know, it just gives you like this like great feeling of accomplishment, like, wow, we've got this like real methodical, process for helping people delegate and get the stuff off their plate. And it just was, it was really fulfilling, I guess, it really was. And it's just like, and, going through and being like, oh my gosh, next time we're going to do this. And like, next time we're going to do this. Like, it's just exciting. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great. I thought you and I made a great team and I'm excited to do this going forward. We already have so many great ideas for the next one. So
I know. And I think you stole my biggest takeaway too, was I couldn't have imagined doing this project with anybody else.
Yeah.
Like our skill sets are like, there's one thing to say our skill sets are complementary. Like but that, like, if we look at it, like, that's just one level. But and you phrased it perfectly. We play nice together. Like, I look forward to, my husband asked me the other day, I was like, oh yeah, well, our last class is tomorrow for our beta and blah blah blah. And he's like, so do you like that Laura person? And I was like, yes, I love Laura. I said I could never have done this if we didn't have the type of working relationship that we do,
Yeah.
because I would have gotten frustrated or bored or both
Right.
partway through. And we just keep thinking of new ideas and new things and new ways we can tweak it. And I like, and this morning is a perfect example. So I went to bed last night thinking about, oh, here's a way that we could get the word out to more people. We can do a league magnet, and here's a couple ideas of what that could look like. And I come into my office this morning and there's an email from you. I had the best idea. We can do a league magnet and blah blah. And I was like, yes, this is why I so love, and I think our personalities are different enough. Like I keep thinking, like I was so sweating the small stuff through the first couple weeks of our course. I was so, okay, I want to make sure this happens and I want to make sure this happens. And it was a beta
Yeah.
with no, like, it's not that we didn't know what we were doing, because we totally knew our content, but the delivery, we were figuring out like what was the right way to sequence things and what was the right way for how much information to give people before, like all of those pieces.
Yeah.
And you just kept smiling and looking at me and saying, it's a beta. Just ask our participants what they need.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I needed to hear, because I just planned A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And you're
Right.
like, just ask them and we can tweak it for next week.
Right. Right. I know, but that is, and I think that was like a really good piece of us working together is you are very structured like that. And and it's not that I'm not structured, because I am, but I'm definitely looser with it and can, I think just the way the two of us were able to do that together was great, because that was a big piece of it, that it is a beta, and their feedback is what is helping us to create the next phase. So it's like invaluable.
Right. So before we jump into what actually does the next one look like, because I can't wait, but we're going to hold that to the end. What were some of the takeaways that you can remember from our participants? Like, what are some of their success stories?
So I loved our one our one participant who was literally said, I have 40 extra minutes every single day, every day. So by the end of the week, that time adds up. And she just was really excited about that. And then also, even the aha moments in the very beginning when we were going through like the life mapping and what is your perfect day like? People were like, wow, I'm really not working in my zone of genius, or I'm not actually doing stuff that I love doing because I'm so busy doing all of this other stuff. And those to me were like the big points when people really realized, because you think that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and we feel as business owners that we're just supposed to be on that hamster wheel all the time, but that's really not true. Like, you don't have to work more to achieve more, right? So yeah, those are probably the two biggest takeaways that I got. What about you?
I would say it was people. I'm thinking of two individuals who had a person that was tasked with a role that they recognized it was a mismatch
Mm-hmm.
between the person and the role. And so
Right.
it wasn't that the person wasn't capable, it's that they weren't capable. It wasn't in their strengths or their zone of genius to do that role, which is why it was hard. Like they recognized it was hard, the person wasn't really taking initiative, and it was that piece of, oh, wait a minute, wrong person
Right.
for that role. So that, and then the other thing I'm remembering is one of the times where someone said, I have been trying to delegate this and I get so frustrated. I get this far and I get so frustrated because they can't read my mind.
Mhm.
that I just take it back and do it myself.
Right.
And now I have a process to follow where, as long as I follow the process, they don't have to read my mind anymore because I'm giving them all the information they need. And it was that idea of, I've always gotten this far and I have never been able to get further, and now I can get further.
Right. Right. I'm thinking of one other one too, now that you say that though, where they had delegated something off and really realized that they needed to keep that piece for themselves, but in the process realized, hey, there's this other thing I'm doing. I can actually delegate this off my plate, which frees me to be doing, this part. So yeah. And a lot of times too, when people they get frustrated with the who might not be right, they kind of give up and maybe even let that person go, where it's not necessarily that that person's not great for you, it's just that that piece is not in their zone of genius, right?
Right. Right. And so what I'm looking forward to is a couple months down the road when we can follow back up with these participants and get some data,
Yes.
like get some hard numbers. I They track their time. And so, to reach back out and ask them again, will you track your time again for us and let us know? Where are you at when you look in your ideal day?
Mhm.
What did you delegate off and how much did that cost you in wages? And what did you do in replace of that?
Right.
And what did you make there? Like we both know, like I know, okay, I just recently delegated off about an hour worth a week of like 10-minute tasks.
Hmm.
And I popped it in my calendar and I did marketing for a new program. I know that difference in cost is huge. And so it'll be cool to get those types of stats
Yeah.
from our participants.
Yeah. Yeah. That actually, it's funny that you even mentioned the process piece again, because we brought on a new salesperson. And for some reason, I felt that I had to be the one to go in and redo all of our processes. And I'm thinking, wait, why am I doing that? I don't even do that piece anymore. Like, that needs to go to my sales director, who is ingrained in sales day in and day out. She is the one that needs to put that piece together. And it's for some reason though, again, I felt like, oh, I'm the one that has to do it. No, I'm not. I'm not even the one doing it every day. When I started doing it, I'm like, wait, I'm like missing pieces here. So
You're
we
like,
need
no,
to be able to let go.
right? Yeah, this is not for me. This is for someone else. All
Yes.
right, so let's talk about the new one. So we have the new one starting in June,
Yeah.
and we've made some tweaks. So what's the version? What does the new one look like?
So the new version is going to be shorter. We're going to take it from that 6-week program, and we're gonna put it into a 28-day program. So you'll have 28 days to delegation, right? So if you put in the time, you're going to reap the rewards afterwards. Putting in more, I think just taking some of the feedback that we got and being able to offer more examples, I think are going to be really huge, to really help people be able to go through the exercises, because a lot of times you need those examples to spark ideas for yourself. Um, so yeah, those are the two big changes. What about you? What?
Yeah, I'm thinking those are our two big ones because our 6-week class, we kept adding bonus sections to it. We ran 8 weeks. We ran it 2 months. And
Yeah.
so I think being able to condense it into 4 weeks, same amount of content, same way of implementing, and less of a load on the calendar for
Mhm.
people. Like that's the one change I'm most excited about. And the fact that we still need a name for this, but the fact that we're adding like the idea of a learning lab at
Yes.
the end of each. So we'll do content and discussion, but then we'll do a learning lab where people can have conversations around their implementation pieces
Yep.
after the content. So I like that. And then just examples. We are going to make it easy for participants to share their examples so that we can learn from each other. You and I will share more examples just so that there's a lot, because I know we learn from doing and from seeing other people versus the concept.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, we want to spend 28 days with Laura and Lisa learning how to delegate, we welcome you to apply. So where you can go is delegatelikeapro.com, and you can register for our next class starting in June.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura.
Have a good day.